Good afternoon and welcome back to another We Are Sunderland team news video. Well, Joe, it's absolutely freezing at the back of the stadium lights here. It's deceiving, isn't it? Because it wasn't too bad outside of the ground.
Yeah, it absolutely should not be this cold towards getting on towards the back end of April. Like it's bolting up here. So wrap up if you come into the game.
Yeah, we've got frostbite up the top. But Mike Dodds has named his side to face Millwall. I'll just quickly run through it. So it's Patterson, Ballard, Patterson, Pembele, O'Nien, Ballard, Agilis, Styles, Job, Ekwa, Rigg, Clark and Dak. Now, when you look at that, you would think that maybe it's going to be a back five unless we see Styles move into midfield and it's a 4 with Agi at left back. I think he's going to stick with the back five just from looking at that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously the big talking point, Stan Neal, we'll come on to, but yeah, for me, I think it probably will stay as the back five, just given what we've heard from Mike Dodds in the past in terms of Timothy Pembele. You know, there's a little bit of reluctance to start him as a fullback. That is the feeling that we've got from inside the academy. Like that, he's more of a wing back. That's his position. So with that, and obviously losing somebody like Dan Neal in the middle and Trai Hume, he's on the bench. You know, suggestions of possibly illness surrounding Trai Hume, but yeah, I would suspect that it stays as a back five, and then there's the option of obviously like what we saw at the back end of the game against West Brom last week, where Styles can move into the middle if Sunderland need it. But I would expect that he'd start over there at left wing back with Pembele over here on the right, and then obviously your three centre backs. Agilis in there. I know you've been sort of waiting to see him back in the starting lineup.
Yeah. But just on Dan Neal, obviously we'll put it to Mike Dodds. We had a comment through from Chris there saying that he's out for the season now. It sounds a little bit dramatic because we only have 3 games left, but still, obviously, we'll put that to Mike Dodds in his post-match press conference, and then obviously we'll put that on We Are Sunderland at full time. On Agi, yeah, I really, really like Agi Elise. I think we've had to sort of bide the time to see him. I do think he offers a bit more solidity and gives you something going forward as opposed to Leo Hjelde.
Yeah, it's interesting on that left if it is going to be a back five. You'd think that Elise and Styles could possibly, with Clark obviously further in front, that there could be potential there to maybe make a bit more of a threat down that left-hand side.
That's been it, hasn't it, going forward? I mean, we saw Sunderland play a back five against West Brom, Leeds, and all right, they were solid. Yeah. But when we saw them play at home against Swansea, they got tore apart down that side of the pitch, didn't they? So that's been one of the main issues, is that we haven't seen enough from Sunderland going forward. Now, is it the formation? Does that stifle them? Mike Dodds said I think it was after West Brom, wasn't it, that he doesn't necessarily think that formation plays into that. That's been not just under Mike Dodds, but maybe the course of the season since Tony Mowbray left, is they haven't got enough out of players in the final third.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And like you say, the 2 games that have just been, you can understand the conservative approach. We'll just pop up the team news that we think possibly how Sunderland are going to line up there today. You can understand the conservative approach in those 2 games, Leeds and West Brom. You know, difficult away games. The question was whether it would stay the same when the onus is on you. You're expected to have more of the ball, more possession, create more chances than what we've seen in those 2 away games. But again, you're going to be dictated by sort of injuries and illness in the camp. So you can understand why he would stick with this system. Obviously, it's a big chance now for Bradley Dack through the middle. We've spoke about him on We Are Sunderland in terms of he's a player out of contract in the summer, could potentially only have 3 games left at the Stadium of Light. If he wants to change the powers that be and who are going to make that decision, then you know he's only got 3 games to make up for it. So it's a really big opportunity for him today.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of comments come through there asking why Bradley Dack's playing. I mean, they've suggested that Adil Aushi should be in the side, and that is an interesting point because, like you say there, we haven't seen enough from Bradley Dack to sort of suggest that he'll be here next year. If they do, is that them ticking the experience box? I mean, that's been the issue, hasn't it? We haven't seen enough of him. Look, his record at Blackburn prior to his 2 sort of big injuries was decent, but again, we haven't seen that player at Sunderland this season. I think the dynamic there is interesting as well, isn't it? Job dropping deeper into midfield, Dack sort of playing as an out-and-out striker. We haven't really seen that either from Dack this season. And again, on Job moving, you know, Mike Dodds has spoke. I know his hand's slightly forced with Dan Neal sort of dropping out the side, but that's Job moving yet again. So that's interesting as well.
On that as well, you know, Corey Evans back in the squad today.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a case of just like what we've seen with Felici, too soon for him to come back in, given that Neil's out, that, you know, sort of almost forced into dropping Joe back in there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've lacked sort of depth, haven't they, in that midfield area. I would like to see him, but I'm also very, very cautious to say throw him in at the deep end. Yes, he's played on the 21s sort of football. I think he'll probably play on Monday night, I believe, against Liverpool. So I think I'd like to see him get minutes off the bench. Corey Evans is someone who, look, it's been a rough sort of 12 months for him, hasn't it? And I think when he's an important part of Sunderland's squad, but again, there's sort of a reluctance in the way of the model has been.
Yeah.
You know, that we're approaching this stage of the season and there's no sort of suggestion whether he'll stay yet. I think when you know, Sunderland have been quite proactive, haven't they, in terms of tying people down to contracts. Actually, at least one who's been out for a long time. I'd like to see him get some minutes between now and the end of the season, but with a player, you know, of Corey Evans' age, will they do it? I don't think so. I think I'd like to see him come off the bench, but again, you've just got to be careful with him, given this sort of degree of injury.
No, I totally agree, and it will be nice to see him come off the bench. But given that we're in that area of the field, we'll talk about Dan Neil, you know, suggestions that he's out for the season now. Like say 3 games to go. How big of a miss will he be for these 3 games, I suppose? But more importantly, how do you assess his season if that is the case?
Yeah.
Started 42 games for Sunderland this season, been an ever-present, 4 goals, 5 assists, still only 22 years of age. What do you make of Dan Neil? He's one of those that falls into that bracket of Premier League potential. You know, there's been scouts watching him that we understand. How do you assess his season, and you know, where does he go from here looking into next season?
I mean, when Dan Neil sort of first broke into side, look, I'm a massive fan of Dan Neil. When he first broke into the side, look, he was a young lad, very similar to Chris Rigg. There was areas of his game that needed improvement, but this season I've just been so impressed by him. Off the ball, having to sort of play that deeper role. I think everyone's pretty acceptant that him and Ekwa are a bit more box-to-box style rather than holding midfield player. I think there was a stage, wasn't there, where Ekwa played slightly deeper. Sunderland look a lot better when Dan Neil plays deeper, and I think just like at Ellen Road, I thought he was head and shoulders Sunderland's best player on that night, and he's been monumental this season. I mean, keeping a hold of him. We talk about Jack Clarke, obviously we expect him to go. Let's talk about Dan Ballard, Anthony Patterson, but keeping Dan Neil, building a team around him, I think that's massive for Sunderland. It's a testament to him as well. Just, you know, he dropped out of the side. He wasn't part of the side. That was, you know, in the League One playoffs.
Yeah, just on that, I'm just going to interrupt there, like, because he was taken out of the side in the end of the season under Alex Neil. He's come back, and it's a, you know, given Sunderland have got such a young squad. You mentioned Chris Rigg and, you know, Joe Bellingham, players like that who could potentially come out of the lineup, like what Neil experienced. He is the absolute pro in terms of how to deal with that situation and come back stronger and make the impact that he's made.
Yeah, I mean, it's his mentality as well, isn't it? I mean, like you said, 22 years of age, and, you know, when Sunderland are going through, you know, terrible patches on the pitch like they have been sort of since February onwards, he's the one that comes out and fronts up, and I think mentally as well, that's testament to what sort of player he is, his character. I mean, you at 22 years of age, I mean, normally you're calling for, like, you know, your senior heads to come out, for example, just in the past, like without Max Power came out, fronted up a lot, Grant Ledbetter spoke to the press. We're now talking about Dan Neil, who's 22 years old. I mean, he's taking the armband at times. I mean, look, he is one like a key cog in this Sunderland sort of machine, and like I said, they need to build a team around him, don't moving forward.
I, again, totally agree. You know, he's one that they need to keep all of in the summer. You mentioned key cogs, and the way that Sunderland have functioned, certainly in the last couple of weeks, outside of the Blackburn game, as we all know, has been clean sheets. 5 in the last 6. What are you expecting today? You know, there is an expectancy on Sunderland to be more attacking today, isn't there, than what we've seen?
Yeah.
Is that at the risk of conceding today? Like, they need to go and win. They haven't won it at home. Haven't won here since early February against Plymouth. 2 games to go, Millwall and Sheffield here. They need to get some points.
Yeah, you look at this run of games as well, don't you? And look, not sort of. Mike Doz will come out and say every game in the Championship's a tough one, but Sunderland need to win these, you know, the next 3 really, and he says they want to win every game. I think what's interesting is if you just look at the shape that they've lined up in today, Millwall have tended to play sort of a 4-4-2 under Neil Harris since he went back in there. So in theory, you know, you've got an overload at the back with 3-on-2. You're matching them up in midfield. The only issue that I would say is that central area with Bradley Dack coming up against 2 centre halves. So the role of Chris Rigg, Jack Clarke, Chris Riggs sort of rolled in a lot of that one, that right-hand side, and Jack Clark, again, we know what he can do. I think Sunderland are going to win the game in wide areas of the pitch. Obviously, it's a sort of big ask on Job and Ekwa. You've got to win that midfield battle. I mean, George Honeyman's in there today playing. It was sort of a, will he be fit enough, won't he be fit enough for his return? He was desperate to come back and play. We know what he's like, industrious. Sunderland have got to win that midfield battle and then, look to play out wide, I think.
Yeah, Mike Dodd spoke about that midfield battle being key today. With those two in centre midfield, do you think they can?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Ekwa again has blown hot and cold. I think after he dropped out of the side, and Mike Dodd said that he had conversations with him, he's actually been pretty good since coming back in there. Job as well. I've liked what I saw from Job this season. Look, again, he's another one, 18 years old. Yeah. He's done really well when leading the line. Okay, might not have scored the sort of goal returns that he would have expected, but again, you're asking a young lad there to go again in central midfield. It's important that they start the game well and they're not overawed or anything like that, because I am expecting a physical battle. I don't want to sort of label that at the players, but the Blackburn game was one where Sunderland just sort of got steamroller, didn't they? So, they've got. They need to put in performances at home. Look, that there can be no beat around the bush there.
And just to finish off, really, you mentioned young lad. We can't really go a week without talking about Chris Rigg at the moment. Just testament again to sort of the ability, the standard, the maturity that he's shown, that he continues in the side in this run of games, out in that wide area.
Yeah, and I mean, interestingly, there's obviously no Patrick Roberts on the bench now. Again, is that someone just managing, his return? I think it says more about Chris Rigg, doesn't it? I mean, I did a piece on, obviously, We Are Sunderland, which went up sort of last week. Everybody who you speak to speaks about the mental side of his game. I think it was Tony Mowbray as well spoke about when you throw him in there, it's not from a lack of respect, but he's not overawed by the players who he's coming up against in training. And that's exactly the same today. I think, obviously, was it the Bristol game where they reverted to a back three, back five? I actually think not just to stop Clark, but that it was also to stop Chris Rigg out on this side. We saw him against Cardiff. They made a change out there. I mean, this is a 16-year-old who week in, week out is showing that he can play at the championship level. I mean, there'll be some questions, obviously, are they doing it to keep him here? He's shown he's good enough, isn't he?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, just testament to him. He's been superb since he come back.
Yes, he has indeed, and we'll wrap it up there. Sunderland host Millwall here in the Championship. Same night, 3 o'clock kick-off, just over half an hour to go. Just before we go, I'm going to plug our competition that's over at We Are Sunderland at the moment. Chance to win Black Cats Bar season tickets here at the Stadium Light next season. Unbelievable prize on offer. All you have to do is subscribe for £1 to We Are Sunderland. All the details are on our website. Make sure that you check that out. We're going to be hearing a lot about it. You've got until May the 10th until that competition closes. A pair of Black Cats Bar season tickets for just £1, price worth over £1,600. An incredible price for us to be giving away. So make sure you get involved with that, and make sure you stay tuned to We Are Sunderland for all the latest here from the Stadium Light this afternoon, and hopefully what will be a win against Millwall. Thanks for joining us.